Hello, and welcome to another live chat with me, A.F. Stewart. And today I'm here to talk about books I read this year and do a year end countdown thing because I was too lazy to review the books as I read them. So this fixes it. Anyway, and Happy New Year, everybody. And welcome to the year end episode of And I'm back. Okay, so our first book, these books are not in particular order, and they're just books I've read and enjoyed this year, or a couple of them are ones I haven't quite finished, but and I'm enjoying them enough to recommend them. So, first book is, if we can get the screen share up and running here. First book is A Bond of Thread by Allegra Pescatore and J.P. Bernesen, and I hope I pronounced those names right. This is a fantasy novel. Yeah, but it's also a fantasy romance novel as well. A little kinky sex in there, so it's a lot in it for everybody. But it is a damn good book, and it is, I think, my favorite book I read this year. So, not that I've read a lot of books this year, but I'm getting there. It's basically an interesting take on Fae and the different realms and things, and it's, you really have to read it. It's hard to describe, but basically, it's this outcast warrior who's in hiding. Stumbles on this girl who's on the run, and then they end up running from monsters with an entire village hiding in a cave trying to escape, and shenanigans ensue. So I highly recommend this book, and there's also a free short story that starts the series called The Binding Day Truce, which is how I discovered this. It was in an anthology, but it's now free on Amazon, so if you want to check that out to see if you're going to like the series, that's a good way to start. And the series itself is called The Mountain Fell, and again, highly recommend it. 5 stars, excellent series. Can't wait to read the rest of it. So that is book 1. And second book is going all the way from fantasy into weird occult horror fiction. And we get the screen share up again. Where All Is Night and Starless by John Linwood Grant. And there is the cover. And it is as creepy as it looks. But I gotta say, if you like weird horror tinged dark stories, this is a short story collection that are creepy, but it's not, there's no like gore or ick in it. It's just kind of creepy, disturbing, kind of make you think, get under your skin sort of thing. This is excellent. I have not quite finished it yet, which is why there's no reviews up on Goodreads or Amazon for me yet, because I'm trying to find time to finish what I have left in one go, because it's that good. But what I've read so far is amazing, and another 5-star for me, and I would highly recommend this. If you like your dark, creepy horror, this is the one for you. Okay, so that's book 2. Now we're on to book 3. Oh, and this one is a light fantasy romance, but not your typical light fantasy romance. That's what I liked about it. So here we go. Now, I read the first book this year, but book 3 in the series has come out. The first book was put out a couple of years ago, but book 3 in the series has come out this year, so that's why it's on the list for 2021. And just let me get this one up on there it is. And this is the one I read half a soul. This is book 1 in the series, and the series is Regency Fairy Tales. So if you like Regency romances and you like light fairy tale type fantasy, this book, this series mashes it all up, but it's really good because what it does, it doesn't do your typical, happily everybody gets together, the miscommunications. It's got a little depth to it, a little nuance, and where it keeps in the light Regency romance vein. It's really really a nice little fantasy as well, and I like the ending. It went where you thought it would go, but not quite the way you thought it would. It's at least for half a soul, and I've just started reading the third one, Long Shadow, and that one also promises to be just as entertaining as the first one. So I highly recommend this. This is the Regency Fairy Tales series by Olivia Atwater, and again, highly recommended by me. Do check it out. Okay, and the next book we have is just coming up here. We'll get the screen share going. Dun. Here we go now. Okay, and this one's got a gorgeous cover. This is Breach of Peace by Daniel Green. Now, if anybody knows Daniel Green, you know he's a rather well-known YouTuber, does book reviews, TV shows, fantasy in general, some sci-fi. And I'm a fan of his channel, and which is how I found out he wrote a book. Actually, it's written two now because there's the second one came out this year as well, Rebels Creed. And the series is Lawful Times. And I gotta say, this one is kind of, it's very dark, dystopian type of fantasy. It's not, there's not a lot of fantasy. You get kind of like undertones of something going on in the fantasy and magic realm sort of thing. So it plays far more like a dystopian fantasy. But, oh, that ending will kill you. It's a good ending. It worked, but oh, yeah, you don't see it coming, and it'll just hit you in the face. I tell you. But I highly recommend this book. It's well done. It's entertaining, and it's a short novella, so it's not a long read. And again, definitely recommend this book to reading, especially if you like the darker fantasy, grim dark type fantasy, anything along that vein. Highly recommend it. Haven't read book 2 yet, but it is on the list for next year. So, okay, and this one I read this year. It's book 2 in a series. And again, back to the screen share we go. A Theft Most Foul by Nicole Givens Kurtz. And again, I hope I got the name right. And again, I love the covers for this series. This one's great, but the first one's great too. And now I recommend this series. Now, it does have a few issues in it. Some of the mystery could be tighter, I think, in both book and in the first book. The pacing was a little off in places. But the reason I'm recommending this particular series is because the world building and the characterization is remarkable. And it really is. I hate to use the word original because I really don't think there's anything original in writing because it's all been recycled in some form, but it is very unique, I think, because it's based on like birds and tribal culture, and it's a fascinating world to read. And the second book is better than the first, so I think she's kind of coming into the series more. So I hope that the continuing books in the series will improve. And both of them are immensely readable, though. So I do recommend it. I'm just saying that and this book was definitely better than the first one. So I'm looking forward to more of it, and I recommend this series as well. The series is Kingdom of Aves Mysteries, and this book is A Theft Most Foul. Book 1 is Kill 3 Birds. So do check it out. They're worth the read. Okay, now we're getting into the poetry. Yes, recommending poems. So, okay, the screen share up here. Where's the screen share? Okay, now this one I came across recently while watching Joshua Pantalesco's podcast. He was interviewing the author, and I really liked what she was saying and what she was talking about. So I checked out her book, and was I impressed by this book. This is I can't say enough about it. It's so excellent. It's a series of personal essays, of poems, and of art, and it is just fabulous. It talks about relationships, about self-discovery, about self and what it means, and I just ran through it in a day. It was really, really good, and I highly recommend it. And if you like personal essays, poems, introspection, and you can see by the cover that's kind of her art style, but it works really well with the poems. And yeah, can't say enough good things about this book. Definitely go read it if you like poetry, and so definitely. And I'm saying that word too much, but anyway. Okay, so next poem. Okay, yeah. All right, here we go. Another screen share. Oh, sorry. I forgot to say the name and author of that last book. That was A Tale of Her by Menaric of Gray, and I'm pretty sure I butchered that. But anyway, you could probably tell from the cover. But anyway, all the links are in the description for these books that I'm talking about. So just click on them to find them. And so again, we'll try this again for the next book. And you can tell I'm prepared. And the next book we have here is Rhymes from the Wicked Nursery by J.D. Estrada. And another wonderful looking cover. Now, this one, I really enjoyed this one. It's the little dark, little black humor in it. Great poems. It is a poetry book. It's just like little tidbits of amusing black humor that have nuance and substance, and it's really, really a good book. So if you like poetry, especially if you like horror poetry or dark poetry, pick this one up. Rhymes from the Wicked Nursery. Okay. Whoops. Oh yeah, wrong button. There we go. Okay, and the next books. This is 2 books. It's a series. It's called Alice Pandemic Series, and the books are Alice 0 and Alice 1. I think they should be read together. The author says you can read Alice 1 without reading Alice 0, and you probably can, but I think they work better if you read them together. And basically what this series is, it's Alice in Wonderland told through Greek mythology in a sort of poetry saga style. And it's really, really good. And we'll get the screen share up so you can see the cover of Alice 0 here. There's the cover of Alice 0. It's also an illustrated book. So and it has some very nice illustrations in both books. And oops, there we go. Yes, you can tell I'm technically challenged. But the book has, I think what the strength of these 2 books is the characterization, because it doesn't read like poetry. It reads like a story, but it's written like poetry. But you really get involved with the characters and what's going on and the mysteries and the intricacy of the words. And it's really, really good. And I highly recommend getting both books and giving them a read. Now, the last book I have for you, I have not read. I just started reading this, but I'm sharing it on the premise alone because I bought it on the premise alone. And basically the premise of this book is the fairy tale Snow White and Rose Red meets Irish mythology. that had me in a second. And I've just started reading it, but so far it is great, and I'm going to recommend it on the strength of that. So here we go. We'll give you a share because the cover is really pretty too. So yeah. And the book is Blood of the Lily by S.D. Houston. So here we go. And you can see, isn't that a pretty cover? Anyway, so as I said, I don't have too much to say about this because I've just started reading it. But so far, we've got goddesses, Rose Red and her version of Rose Red and Snow White. And yeah, I'm looking forward to finishing it and reading it. And so I'm going to recommend it just on that alone. And I hope you check it out because I think it's worth checking out. So there you go. Anyway, so that's my year-end books for this year. I didn't read a heck of a lot. I was hoping to get a few more in, but life came and kicked me in the butt. And yeah, I didn't get as many books read this year as I wanted to, but I'm sharing the ones I did read. And all these books, at least one in the series came out this year, so it fits for a year-end review. And I hope you enjoyed them, and I hope you check the books out because they're worth checking out. And I also want to say again, Happy New Year. And be sure to check out Go Indie Now tonight because they're having their big annual New Year's Eve bash, and I'm going to be on the show. And so be sure to check that out and check out everybody and all the shenanigans because every New Year's Eve, there's shenanigans over there. So I'll say bye for now, and I hope you enjoyed the reviews. That's it.